I always believed love was enough. My name is Ethan, 29 years old, married to Lena for 3 years. When we first met, we shared cheap coffee and laughed about having nothing. We promised to build a life together, brick by brick. I held on to that promise like it was oxygen. "Ethan, you don't have to work so much," she used to say back then, touching my cheek. "I want to take care of us," I always replied. "I want you to have everything you dream of." But dreams cost money, and money was something I never had enough of. So I worked. Late shifts, extra weekends, anything I could take. I told myself I was doing it for us. At first, Lena smiled when I came home tired. She would cook dinner and wait for me on the couch. But slowly, things changed. The dinner stopped. The touches stopped. The eye contact faded. I remember the first time she laughed at her phone instead of with me. I was sitting at the small dining table, dripping oatmeal on my paperwork. "What's so funny?" I asked. "Just a meme," she said, but she turned the screen away. Her smile was different, private. Something inside me sank like a stone into deep water, but I told myself I was being paranoid. I trusted her. I loved her. That had to be enough. Days turned into weeks. She stayed out longer. Sometimes she said she was with friends. Other times she didn't say anything at all. One night, I came home earlier than usual. She was sitting on the couch, staring at her phone with that same secret smile. "Hey," I said softly. She flinched. "Oh, hey, you're home early. Yeah, slow day." I sat beside her. "Who are you talking to?" She hesitated. "Just someone from work." I nodded, though something inside me ached. "Are you okay?" I asked. "You seem far away lately," she sighed and locked her phone. "I'm just stressed."
"Don't start reading into things. I'm not," I whispered.
"I miss you." She didn't answer. Silence became normal, heavy, loud. I worked harder. I told myself I had to prove I was enough. But the more I tried, the farther she drifted. Then came the night she came home smelling like expensive perfume. Not the one we could afford. "You're home late," I said, sitting up from the couch. "I told you not to wait up," she replied. "Where were you?" "Out," she repeated simply. "With who?" She paused. Her coat still on. Her eyes tired, but not from working. "Ethan, can we talk?" she said, my stomach twisted. "About what?" "I feel trapped," she said, my chest tightened. "Trapped? By what? By this," she motioned to our small apartment. "By us. By this life. I'm doing everything I can." "I know," she said softly. "But love isn't enough." "Not always." "Yes, it is," I insisted. "We just have to keep going. Things will get better." She shook her head. "I don't think I can do this anymore." "Lena, please." "Don't say that. I just need space. Time to think. Time to breathe." "Are you leaving me?" I asked. "I don't know," she whispered. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it instantly. I closed my eyes. The next day, I tried something different. I left work early and cooked dinner. Actual dinner. I set the table. I lit a candle. When Lena walked in, she looked surprised. "You cooked?" "Yeah," I said, smiling small. "I thought we could eat together." "Like we used to." She sat down. Picked at the food. "We used to talk," I said. "About everything." "Things change," she murmured. "They don't have to," I said. "We can fix this." She looked at me, eyes exhausted. "I feel like I'm drowning." "Drowning in what?" "Responsibility, bills, expectations. I want more." "And I want to give you more," I said. "I just need time," she shook her head. "I've heard that before." Her fork clinked against the plate. She stood.
"I need to be honest with you." My heart pounded.
"Okay, I don't think I'm happy here anymore." "Is it me?" I asked. "No, yes, I don't know, I just don't feel like I can breathe. Can we try therapy?" "I don't think therapy can change how I feel. So what are you saying?" "I need time away," she said, "to figure out who I am and what I want." "And you can't do that with me?" I asked quietly. She closed her eyes. "I don't know," I nodded slowly. "If you need space, I won't hold you here." She looked surprised I didn't beg. That night, she slept in the other room. I laid in the dark, staring into nothing, feeling the silence settle in my chest. I just felt empty inside. Completely. I woke up that afternoon thinking it was just another quiet day. The sunlight came through the window, warm and soft, but it felt cold to me. Lena was already awake, sitting at the dining table, her hands folded tightly together. She didn't look up when I walked into the room, and I could tell something was wrong. There was a heaviness in the air, the kind that makes your heart race before you hear a single word. "Lena," I said softly. "What's going on?" She didn't look at me. "Sit down. We need to talk." My chest tightened. I sat across from her. "Okay, I'm listening." She took a slow breath. "Ethan, I want a divorce." The words hit me so hard I stopped breathing. "What?" She finally looked at me. Her eyes were blank. "I want a divorce. I can't live like this anymore. I can't live a poor life." My voice wavered. "Lena, I'm working. I'm doing everything I can to support us." "Things are getting better," she shook her head. "No, they're not. You keep saying that, but nothing changes. I don't want to wait anymore." "You knew what life with me would look like," I said. "We promised we'd build everything together." "I changed," she said quietly. My voice came out small. "Changed how?" She hesitated, then spoke the words that broke me further. "I've been talking to Adrian again." The room felt like it tilted. "Adrian? Your ex-boyfriend?" She nodded slowly. "Yes," I swallowed hard. "So all the messages, all the late nights. That was him?" "Yes," I stared at her. "Lena, we promised each other. We said no matter how hard things got, we'd stay together." "I don't care about those promises anymore," she said. My hands trembled. "Can we talk about this? Can we try to fix it?" "I love you, Lena." She looked away. "Love isn't enough." The room felt like it was closing in on me. "Does he make you happy?" I asked. She didn't blink. "Yes, and I don't?" She stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "No, you don't." The pain spread through my chest like fire. I tried to breathe, but each breath hurt. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. "Divorce papers. Already prepared. You already did this," I said. "I've been thinking about it for months," she replied. "I just didn't know how to tell you." I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask her why she didn't talk to me. Instead, I whispered, "Lena, I would have listened. I would have changed. I would have done anything." She looked at me with the saddest expression I'd ever seen. "I don't want you to change. I just don't want this life." I felt numb. "So what happens now?" "I move out tonight," she said. "Or you can. Whatever is easier," my heart twisted. "You're going to him?" She didn't answer. Which was an answer. I stared down at the papers. My signature line waited, empty and final. "Do you love him?" I asked. She hesitated, then said, "I think I always did." I bit down on my lips so hard I tasted blood. "And you couldn't tell me?" "You were safe," she said. "You were stable. But I wanted more." I closed my eyes. That was the worst part. I wasn't even left for love. I was left for comfort. My voice cracked. "I meant everything I ever said to you." "I know," she whispered. "That's why this hurts." Her wedding ring slid off her finger. She placed it on the table. The small sound of it hitting the wood was louder than anything I'd ever heard. I signed the divorce papers. My signature looked broken like me. When I finished, I stood up. "I hope he gives you everything you traded me for." She didn't look at me. I walked into the bedroom and pulled out a suitcase. I packed slowly, a few shirts, jeans, a jacket, my toothbrush. Every item felt like another goodbye. As I zipped the suitcase, Lena walked to the doorway. "Ethan," she said softly. I didn't turn around. "Don't," I whispered. "Please, don't make this harder." She stayed silent. I walked out of our apartment for the last time. I didn't look back. If I did, I knew I wouldn't be able to leave. Outside, the world kept moving like nothing had happened. Cars drove by. People laughed across the street. But everything inside me was collapsing. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone. I called the only person I could think of. "Lucas," I said, my voice almost gone. "Can I come over?" His tone changed instantly. "Yeah, where are you?"
Text me the address.
"I'm coming." He arrived 10 minutes later. When he got out of the car and saw my face, his jaw clenched. "What did she do?" he asked. I couldn't speak. I just shook my head. He opened the passenger door. "Get in." We drove in silence. I stared out the window, watching the world blur past. Finally, Lucas spoke. "I always had a bad feeling about her, but I kept quiet because you loved her." I swallowed. "I don't know what I did wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "Some people don't want love. They want convenience." I closed my eyes. I loved her. She was my entire world. "I know," he said softly. but you'll survive this. You don't see it yet, but you will. We got to his apartment. I sat on his couch, my suitcase at my feet. The silence felt endless. Lucas sat next to me. Say it, he said. Say what's hurting. My voice shook. She didn't just leave me. She stopped loving me. He put his hand on my shoulder. Then you deserve someone who won't. I nodded, but the pain didn't fade. That night, I lay on his couch staring at the ceiling. No matter how still I tried to be, my chest kept aching. My heart felt like it was breaking one slow, painful second at a time. I finally cried. Quietly. So quietly the world couldn't hear it. But I felt everything. I stayed awake until the sky started to turn pale. The world outside was beginning another day, but mine had ended hours ago. I didn't know what tomorrow would look like, or the day after, or the one after that. All I knew was that the life I had built, the life I believed in, was gone. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, I don't know how to move on. But I'll try. It was the only promise I had left. I moved into the small rented room on a Thursday morning. The walls were thin, the window was cracked, and the bed creaked whenever I sat on it, but I didn't complain. I didn't feel anything worth complaining about. My life had already crumbled, and this was just what was left. I placed my small suitcase against the wall and sat on the bed, staring at nothing for a few minutes. I didn't cry. I had already used all my tears. At my first job, I worked early mornings unloading shipments. The warehouse was loud, the floors cold, and my hands blistered. No one really talked except the occasional tired joke. I didn't join in. I kept my head down and did the work. After that, I headed to my second job at the restaurant. I washed dishes until my fingers pruned and the smell of soap sunk into my skin. I moved in silence, only nodding when someone asked me something. Hey, you okay? A soft voice asked one evening as I scrubbed a pan. I didn't even look up at first. I'm fine. I've noticed you don't talk much, she said. I'm Mira, I nodded. Ethan, she leaned against the counter. You look tired. More than just physically. I kept my eyes on the sink. Everyone's tired, but not like that, she said. You look like someone who lost something important. Her words hit deeper than I expected. I swallowed. Maybe I did. She didn't push. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded and went back to her work. Somehow, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Days blurred together. Warehouse, restaurant, sleep, repeat. I didn't think about Lena, or at least I told myself I didn't. But every time I passed a couple on the street holding hands, my chest tightened. One afternoon, while I was on break, my phone buzzed. I almost didn't look, but habit made me check. A group chat message. Pictures of Lena and Adrian at some rooftop party, wearing designer clothes, laughing like they had never known sadness. Someone in the chat wrote, Guess money really does buy happiness, lol. I stared at the screen for a long moment. My hands didn't shake. I didn't cry. I just felt a quiet, heavy numbness settle into my bones. At my third job, the office had a different air. I worked as an assistant in a corporate firm, doing basic administrative tasks. The CEO, Mr. Gray, was a reserved man, always watching, rarely speaking unless necessary. He walked by my desk one afternoon and paused. You're new, he said. Yes, I replied. Ethan, he nodded. I've noticed you work quietly. I try not to cause trouble. Trouble isn't the issue, he said. Most people complain. You don't. I didn't know what to say to that. He studied me for another moment, then walked away. I didn't think about it again. Mira started sitting with me during breaks at the restaurant. She never forced conversation. She just existed near me, and sometimes that was enough. You ever just feel like you're rebuilding from ashes? She asked once. I almost laughed, but it came out more like a breath. Yeah. Does it get easier? I don't know yet, I said. But I'm still here, she smiled softly. That's something. Weeks passed. My body adjusted to the exhaustion. My mind stayed quiet, and slowly I felt the numbness soften, just slightly. One evening, after most workers had left the office, I was still sorting files. Mr. Gray walked in. You're still here, he said. I just wanted to finish this before heading out. He nodded. Come to my office for a moment. I hesitated, then followed him. His office was clean, almost too clean. He sat behind the desk and gestured for me to sit. I've been observing you, he said. You handle pressure well.
You don't complain.
You focus. I shrugged slightly. I just do what needs to be done. That's rare, he said. I would like to offer you training for a higher position. If you're willing to learn, I blinked.
Why me?
Because you show discipline, he said. And discipline is valuable. I felt something warm in my chest, something unfamiliar lately. Hope, maybe. I'll do it, I said quietly. Good, he replied. We start Monday. When I left the building, the sky was purple and fading. The air was cool. I walked slowly, breathing deeply. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was drowning. That night, back in my small room, I sat on the bed and looked at my hands. They were rough and tired, but they were still mine. And they were still working, I whispered to myself. I'm not done yet. The next week, I started coming in early to meet with Mr. Gray. He taught me how to organize reports, how to communicate with clients, how to stay calm under pressure when others panicked. He didn't praise me often, but when he did, it meant something. You did well today, he said one afternoon after I handled a late document delivery issue. I nodded. Thank you. He looked at me with a steady, quiet expression. Keep going. You may not feel it yet, but you're changing. The word echoed inside me long after I walked out of his office. At the restaurant, Mira noticed too. You look different lately, she said while wiping down a table. Different how? I asked. More alive, she said. Less faded. I didn't know how to answer that. I'm just trying to move forward, she tilted her head. Do you think you're over her? The question hit me in a soft but clear way. No, I said honestly, but I think I'm learning to live with the pain. Instead of letting it drown me, Mira nodded. That's strength, you know. Not everyone knows how to do that, I shrugged. I don't feel strong. Strength doesn't always feel like strength, she said. Sometimes it just feels like breathing when everything hurts. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, but there were days when the past came back sharp and sudden. One night after my shift, I saw another post shared online, Lena holding Adrian's arm, smiling at a jewelry store. The caption said something like, "Real love always finds its way back." My breath caught. I locked my phone and sat down on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let the ache settle in my chest. The next morning at the warehouse, my coworker Dan nudged me. You good, man? He asked. Yeah, I said, though my voice was flat. He didn't push. If you ever need to grab a drink, let me know. People were noticing more than I realized. One evening, after I finished some training tasks, Mr. Gray called me again. Walk with me, he said. We stepped outside into the evening air. The city lights were glowing. Cars moved by, slow and steady. He spoke first. I've seen men break under far less than what you're carrying. But you haven't broken, I looked ahead. Some days I feel like I have. Feeling broken and being broken are different, he said. You still get up. You still work. That means something, I took a slow breath. I just didn't know who I was without her. You're learning now, he said simply. His words didn't heal me, but they gave me something to hold on to. When I went back to the restaurant that night, Mira handed me a warm bowl of soup before my shift. You look like you need this, she said. I sat with her in the back, eating slowly. The warmth felt like something I had been missing. She rested her chin on her hand. You know, you don't have to go through everything alone. I don't want to be a burden, I said. You're not, she replied. Sometimes people just want to care. Let them. I didn't say anything for a long moment. Then slowly, quietly, I said, Thank you. She smiled. Anytime. That night, walking home under the dim streetlights, I realized something. I was still hurt, still tired, still rebuilding. But I was no longer empty. Something small, fragile, and steady was growing inside me. A beginning. When I reached my room, I sat on the bed and took a deep breath. The room was still small. The window was still cracked, but something inside me had shifted. I will keep going, I said. Not because I forgot the pain, but because I survived it, and because I was learning how to become someone new. I closed my eyes, breathed again slowly and steady. I heard about Adrian and Lena again when Naomi called me one evening. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, tying my work shoes, when the phone buzzed. Ethan, she said, her voice low. You need to hear this. I hesitated. I'm not sure I want to. It's not gossip, she insisted. It's important, I sighed. All right. What's happening? She took a slow breath. Lena's not happy. Not like she pretends online. My hand froze on my shoelace. What do you mean? Adrian is not who she thought he was, Naomi said. He's jealous, controlling. He watches everything she does. I waited, silent. He made her quit her job, she continued. Said he'd take care of her. But now he limits her spending, checks her messages, and gets angry if she talks to friends. I swallowed hard. She used to complain when I couldn't take her out enough. Now she can't even go out at all. There was a quiet beat. Yeah, Naomi whispered. She traded freedom for money. I leaned back, staring at the wall. Does she regret it? She won't say it. Naomi paused. But she's scared. I can hear it in her voice. I closed my eyes. I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel victory. I just felt tired. What do you want me to do with this information? I asked. Nothing, she said. I just thought you should know you weren't the problem. I breathed out slowly. Thank you. She hung up and I sat there for a long time, thinking. I remembered how Lena used to laugh freely. How she used to dance barefoot in the kitchen. How she used to tell me she loved simple things. Now she lived in a house made of gold bars and iron walls. I didn't message her. I didn't reach out. I didn't feel the need to. That part of my life was behind a door that I had already closed, even if the lock sometimes rattled in the night. At work, things continued to change. Mr. Gray invited me to his office for another review session. He stood with his hands behind his back. You're adapting quickly, he said. I'm trying, I replied. He nodded. I've worked with many people. Most break when pressure hits. He looked directly at me. You bend, but you don't break. I wasn't sure how to respond. I just keep moving. That is endurance, he said. And endurance is more valuable than talent. His words hit a part of me that had been empty for months. I looked at him. Why are you helping me? His expression didn't change. Because I see a future in you, even if you don't yet. I didn't know what to say to that either. After that meeting, I returned to my desk with something warm flickering inside me. A spark. Later that week at the restaurant, Mira and I sat outside on break. The night was quiet. A warm breeze passed through the alley. You look lighter, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Do I? Yeah. She nudged my shoulder. Something shift? I thought for a moment. I think I'm starting to understand that losing someone isn't the end of me. She smiled gently. That's a big thing to learn. We sat in silence for a while. Then she said softly, Do you still love her? I didn't flinch. Yeah, in some way I do. I exhaled. But I don't want my life to stop because of it. Mira nodded. Good, because you're starting to shine again. I didn't know about shining. But I was breathing easier. Still, news traveled. And eventually, I saw it myself. On social media, Lena posted a picture. A perfect smile. A perfect dress. A perfect life. But her eyes looked tired, and I knew those eyes. A few days later, Naomi called again. Things are getting worse, she said immediately. I rubbed my forehead. Naomi, I don't know how much of this I should keep hearing. I know. I'm sorry. But listen, her voice trembled. I was at their place. Lena looked different. Like she was afraid to breathe too loudly. My chest tightened. What did he do? He didn't hit her, she said quickly. But he talked to her like she was property. Like she exists for him. I felt something twist inside me. She chose him, I said softly, not with anger but resignation. I know, Naomi whispered. But I don't think she understood what she was choosing. There was silence, heavy and long. Then I asked, Did she ask about me? Naomi hesitated. Yes, I exhaled. What did she say? She asked if you were okay. I stared at the floor. And what did you tell her? That you're rebuilding, Naomi said. That you're working hard. That you're trying. I nodded slowly. Good, Naomi's voice grew gentler. Would you ever take her back? The question hit me harder than I expected. I replied quietly, I don't know. Not now, maybe not ever. Because I would have to forget how she left. Naomi didn't say anything for a while. Then she whispered, I'm sorry. It's okay, I said. Just take care of her if you can. I will. We ended the call and I returned to my small room. The walls were thin, but they were mine. The bed was rough, but it held me. The air wasn't cold. It wasn't warm either. Just enough. The next day at work, Mr. Gray approached my desk. Walk with me, he said. We entered one of the empty meeting rooms. He gestured for me to sit. I've been reviewing your progress, he said. Your performance has improved significantly, I nodded. Thank you. But that's not what impresses me, he continued. What impresses me is how you continue despite everything. I didn't respond. He folded his hands. Pain can destroy. Or it can refine, I looked at him then. Really looked. His eyes were steady. No pity, no judgment. Just recognition. I'm trying to choose refinement, I said quietly. He allowed himself the smallest smile. Good, because I want to offer you a development program. Leadership training, mentorship. It won't be easy, I breathed in sharply. Why me? Because you are learning to stand, he answered. And people who learn to stand can learn to lead. For the first time in months, I felt something like pride. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. When I walked back into the main office, Mira saw the change instantly. What happened? She asked, leaning closer. I smiled a little. I think someone believes I might become something. Mira grinned. Then believe it too. I laughed under my breath. I'm working on it. She rested her chin on her hand. Grief can either bury us or grow us. You're growing. I looked out the window. The city looked huge and indifferent. But for the first time, I didn't feel small. Later that night, I checked social media again. Adrian and Lena posted another photo. A fancy restaurant. Designer clothes. Perfect smiles, but her eyes looked even more exhausted. I whispered to myself, I hope you find yourself again someday. Then I put my phone away, and I didn't look back. The following weekend, Lucas came over to check on me. He didn't knock. He just walked in like always. Your landlord still doesn't believe in doorbells, he said, dropping a bag of takeout on my tiny table. I smirked. Doorbells are for people with budgets. He sat down. How are you holding up? I shrugged. Some days feel okay. Some days feel like I'm still bleeding. Lucas nodded. That's normal. We ate quietly for a moment. Then he said, I heard about Lena and Adrian. Naomi told me. I paused. Yeah, he leaned back. Do you feel better knowing? I thought about it. No, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't undo how things ended. Lucas looked at me carefully. Do you want revenge? I shook my head. No, I just want to live without hurting. He stared at me for a long second. Then he smiled a little. You're stronger than you think. I let out a breath. Maybe, or maybe I'm just too tired to collapse. He laughed softly. That's still strength. We sat there in silence, eating cheap noodles in a tiny room that somehow felt less suffocating than it used to. Before he left, Lucas looked at me and said, You're becoming someone new. Ethan, don't forget that. His words stayed with me after he walked out the door. Later that night, I stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. The world felt huge again, uncertain, but not hopeless. I whispered to myself, I am still here. And the words didn't feel like pain. They felt like a beginning. The spark didn't become a fire overnight, but it stayed warm inside me, reminding me I was still alive and moving forward slowly. I stared at the email for a long moment before it sank in. Promotion. Me. When I walked into the office, I found Mr. Gray near the conference room. He glanced up. Good, you saw the news. Yeah, I said, still stunned. I didn't expect... You earned it, he interrupted. You've taken on more responsibility than anyone else here without complaining. He tapped the folder he held. Now you'll officially manage the contractors and supplier contracts. More negotiation, more visibility, more pay too. I blinked at him. Thank you. You don't need to thank me, he replied. You did the work. The words settled in my chest like warmth. Someone saw me. Someone noticed. Later I told Lucas over lunch. He slapped the table. See, I told you. This is what happens when someone doesn't fold. I laughed under my breath. I thought I was folded. You bent, he said, pointing a fry at me. You didn't break. I let that sit for a moment. So what now? He asked. Now I learn, I said. Investing, negotiation, leadership, everything. Lucas lifted his cup. To the comeback, I clinked mine lightly. To getting up again. Meanwhile, Lena and Adrian, I didn't see it firsthand at first. I heard it from Naomi. We were standing outside after work, the evening breeze tugging at her hair. She hesitated before speaking. You remember when Lena used to post those perfect life photos? I nodded slowly. Yeah, well, she exhaled. It's not really like that. I felt something steady drop inside me. Not satisfaction. Something heavier. What's going on? I asked. Naomi looked around before lowering her voice. Adrian lost a stupid amount of money in some deal. He's stressed. And when he's stressed, he gets controlling. She said he's been checking her phone, telling her what to wear, where to go. He made her quit her job. My chest tightened. She told you all this? I asked, she cried, Naomi whispered. Said she feels trapped. I swallowed hard. Later that week, I received a message from Lena. Hey, are you doing okay? We haven't talked in a while. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying, I'm okay. I hope you're doing all right. She didn't answer for hours. When she finally did, her response was, yeah, everything's great. But her typing stuttered. I could feel the truth behind the pauses. A few days passed. I kept learning. Meetings, deadlines, negotiations. I watched senior managers talk and started to understand the weight behind their words. Mr. Gray stopped by my desk one afternoon. You underestimated yourself for a long time, he said. You have something most people don't. What's that? Endurance. Something in me flickered, like a flame relit in a cold room. I carried that spark home with me. That weekend, Lucas and I grabbed coffee. He leaned back in his chair. Did you hear? Adrian's business is tanking. Some bad supplier contracts, poor risk management. He went all in on something unstable. Now it's biting him. I stirred my drink slowly. Yeah, Naomi mentioned something like that. Lucas raised an eyebrow. This is karma. I didn't respond. You don't feel good about it? He pressed. I shook my head. No, it just aches. Lucas studied me. You're a better person than they were to you. I wasn't sure about that. I just didn't have space for revenge anymore. Days passed. My days were full now. Calls, spreadsheets, negotiation prep, supplier meetings. Every time I made a decision that mattered, something rebuilt itself inside me. But the shadows of the past still drifted through occasionally. On Saturday, I met Lucas like I promised. We sat at a small outdoor table, cheap burgers between us, cars rushing by on the street. He took a bite and stared at me. You know what I like about you now? I raised an eyebrow. My incredible charm? He snorted. No, you don't flinch anymore. Before, everything hit you hard. Now you just take it in and decide what to do with it. I thought about that. I guess I stopped expecting life to be fair. Yeah, he said. But you didn't turn bitter. That's rare. I picked at the wrapper of my burger. I wanted to. At first, I really wanted to hate everything. Hate her, hate him, hate myself. But you didn't, Lucas said quietly. No, I said. Because hate keeps you tied to the person who hurt you. I don't want to live in the same story forever. Lucas leaned back. Then you're already winning. We ate for a few minutes in silence. Then Lucas looked out at the street. Do you think she'll leave him? I exhaled slowly. Maybe, but it's her journey. Not mine. Still hurts? Yeah, I admitted. But the pain doesn't control me anymore. He nodded. After lunch, I walked home alone. The sky was gray but not heavy. There was no storm coming. Just clouds passing by. When I reached my building, I saw the city stretched out beyond the rooftops. Thousands of windows. Thousands of stories. Mine was just one of them. That night, I didn't think about the past. I thought about tomorrow, and the day after that, and the life I was building piece by piece, like a house made of steady hands and slow healing. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her regret. I just needed to keep going. And for the first time in a long while, I believed I could. Not because someone saved me or apologized or came back, but because I stood up, learned, worked, grew, and kept breathing. The shift in power wasn't loud or dramatic. It was simply me, choosing myself every single day. forward. I heard about Adrian's downfall long before I saw it. Whispers moved through the city, through social feeds, through coworkers who loved gossip. I didn't comment. I didn't react. I didn't even look. But the world always brings news to those who learn to stop waiting for it, Lucas told me first. We were in the break room pouring cheap coffee. He said, "Did you hear? Adrian's family company is collapsing." I blinked slowly. "Which part?" "All of it," he said. "Bad investments, bad debt, bad timing." He tried to expand too fast. His father stepped down last year, remember? Adrian took control. Now everything's falling apart. I stared at the steam rising from my cup. "I see," Lucas leaned in. "And Lena?" I shook my head. "I don't know," he sighed. "You could check." "I know you don't want to, but—" "No," I said, cutting him off gently. That chapter is closed, but life still had pages to turn. Naomi caught me outside after work a few days later. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she said, "but they're selling things. Designer bags, jewelry, furniture. Quietly. She looks—" "Different," I nodded. "Everyone faces their consequences," Naomi bit her lip. "Do you hate her?" I looked at the sidewalk, at the cracks running through the pavement. "No, I forgave her so I could breathe." Naomi's eyes softened. "I'm glad." But part of me wondered what forgiveness really meant. Was it letting go or simply losing the strength to hold on? Weeks passed. My routine continued. Work, training, negotiations, more responsibility. I built slowly, carefully. A life I could stand on without fear of collapse. Meanwhile, whispers of Adrian turned sharper. "Did you see him?" Lucas asked one afternoon. "He looks like he hasn't slept in days. And he's still controlling Lena. Worse now. The more he loses, the more he clings." I closed my laptop. "The world takes back what was stolen through pride." Lucas nodded. "And she regrets it." "I know she does." "Maybe," I said. "But regret doesn't undo choices." One night, Mira and I sat outside during break. She could always read me without prying. She watched the city lights flicker. "You're quiet today," she said. I shrugged. "Old ghosts are walking around nearby." She nodded slowly. "If you saw her again, what would you say?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Maybe nothing." "Sometimes silence is the loudest response," she murmured. I didn't know then how close that moment was. It happened on a gray afternoon. Rain had just ended, the street still wet and reflecting lights. I boarded a bus after work, my headphones in, my thoughts quiet. I sat near the back, staring out the window. When the bus stopped 3 stations later, I saw her. Lena stepped on. Her hair was pulled back messily. Her coat was worn. Her heels were replaced with cheap flats. Her makeup smudged under tired eyes. She looked smaller, not physically, but in the way people shrink when life squeezes the arrogance out of them. She didn't see me at first, but then her gaze lifted. Her eyes widened. I felt my heart beat steady, not faster, not slower, just steady. She walked slowly toward me. "Hey," she whispered. I didn't move. I didn't answer. I didn't expect to see you," she continued, voice cracking. "How have you been?" I kept my voice even. "I'm okay." She nodded rapidly, swallowing hard. I'm really glad." Silence filled the space between us. A silence carrying everything we'd lived and lost. She sat down in the empty seat across from me. I wanted to say, "I'm sorry." I looked at her hands, once decorated with diamonds, now empty. "I know," her breath hitched. I didn't understand what I had. I thought happiness meant comfort, money, security. But Adrian, I raised a hand gently. "You don't have to explain." She shook her head, tears building. "I do. I made a mistake. A terrible one. I ruined everything, and now I'm stuck. I don't know who I am anymore." I looked out the window at passing buildings. "I used to feel that way too." She leaned forward. "Is there any chance we could talk? Just talk." "Maybe." I stood. She froze. I met her eyes. "I hope you heal, Lena, truly. But my life is moving forward. I can't go back to where we broke." Her lips parted. No sound came out. I stepped past her, walking down the aisle toward the bus door. She whispered, "Please." I didn't turn. The doors opened. Cool air rushed in. I stepped off the bus. The world outside felt wide, open, real, not heavy. Not painful, just new. Lucas called me later. "You okay?" I sat on a bench watching cars pass. Yeah, I said. I saw her, he exhaled softly. And? I walked away. Lucas paused. How did it feel? I looked up at the sky, soft, pale, endless. Like closure, I said. Not victory, just closing the door gently and locking it behind me. Lucas didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, I'm proud of you. Mira texted me 20 minutes later. You did the right thing. You chose yourself. I smiled. For the first time, I believed it. The next morning at work, Mr. Gray called me into his office. His tone was calm, as always. He asked, You seem different today. More grounded, I nodded. I let something go. He folded his hands. Pain can shape us, but it shouldn't define us. You are choosing wisely. I let out a slow breath. I'm trying. Mr. Gray looked at me for a long moment. Adversity always reveals character. You endured. You learned. You moved forward. That is strength. Hearing that settled something in me. During lunch, Lucas sat with me outside. He handed me a sandwich, his usual peace offering when he sensed something emotional. So, he said, that's really it? That was the moment? I nodded. Yeah. Was she crying? He asked, eyes soft, not mocking. A little, I said. She was tired. Hollow, Lucas exhaled. I always wondered if she'd understand one day. She does, I said quietly. But understanding comes too late sometimes, he nodded. You don't hate her. No, I replied. But I don't love her anymore either. Not in the way I used to, Lucas leaned back. That's the real ending, isn't it? When there's nothing left to pull you back. Yes, I said. That's closure. Later that evening, Mira joined me at a small cafe near work. She stirred her tea and looked at me with thoughtful eyes. You look lighter, she observed. I smiled faintly. I guess I am, she asked softly. Does it still hurt? I thought about it. Not the same way. It's like touching a scar. I remember the pain, but it's no longer happening. She nodded. That means you healed. Not all at once, but slowly. We sat quietly for a moment before she asked, if she apologized sooner, would things have been different? I don't know, I admitted, but timing matters. Love doesn't survive neglect forever. Mira smiled sadly. No, it doesn't. When I got home that night, I scrolled social media, not to check on Lena, but just to unwind. But her name appeared anyway. People talked about how quickly everything changed, how fragile status could be, how love built on pride collapses when pressure hits. I turned my phone off. That was their story now. Not mine. I stood in my small kitchen, breathing in the quiet. I made tea and leaned by the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant fires. I whispered to myself, You survived. The words didn't feel dramatic. They felt true. I survived. Adrian lost everything, but I didn't need that to feel better. Lena regretted everything, but I didn't need that to feel vindicated. My healing didn't depend on their suffering. My healing came from walking away, choosing peace and building a life that didn't need their validation. Maybe one day, Lena would rebuild herself too. Maybe Adrian would learn to be a better man. Maybe life would teach them something kinder, but their path was not mine anymore. I had my own future to walk toward, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The next day, as I walked to work, the sky was clear, washed clean after the storm. People rushed past me, cars honked, life moved without pause. But I felt steady inside myself. I whispered, Thank you, not to anyone in particular, but to the lesson, to the journey, to the version of me who didn't give up even when everything collapsed. Because the fall of the golden couple wasn't my story anymore. This was the rise of someone new. And I kept walking toward tomorrow, still breathing. I stayed late in my office that evening, looking over quarterly reports, planning new partnerships, and confirming meetings for the coming week. My name was now listed on the building directory outside, co-owner. Sometimes I still stared at that polished metal plaque in disbelief. I earned it, but the path here hadn't been clean. It had been brutal. Lesson after lesson carved into the bones of my life. The office was quiet now. Everyone had left hours earlier. I stood up from my chair, stretched my neck, and grabbed my coat. I turned off the lights and walked toward the elevator. That was when I heard it, the soft swish of a mop across tile. A sound that didn't belong to this floor. We had a contracted cleaning crew that usually came after midnight. I followed the sound. When I turned the corner, I froze. There she was, Lena. She wore a plain janitor uniform, dark blue, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. Her hands gripped the mop handle, knuckles pale. When she saw me, the mop slipped from her fingers and fell to the floor with a dull splash. I didn't move. She didn't move. Her eyes widened, and for a second, I thought she might run. But she didn't. Her chest rose shakily, and tears started sliding down her cheeks before she spoke. Ethan. I'm sorry, her voice cracked. The words landed too softly, like they were afraid to exist. I swallowed slowly. Lena! She covered her face with one hand and let out a broken breath. I didn't know you'd be here. I tried to avoid this floor. I needed the extra hours. I didn't interrupt. I just watched her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically. Something in her presence. It was dimmer now. She dropped her hand and looked at me. I know you don't owe me anything. I know I have no right to ask for your time. But please. Her voice wavered. Please let me talk. I leaned against the wall, keeping distance. I'm listening. She wiped her face with her sleeve. Everything that happened, I was scared. Everyone wanted something from me. Everyone had expectations. My family kept telling me what I should be, what I should marry, who I should choose. I thought I was making decisions for a better future, but really I was just running. I lied to you. And I broke you. And I hate myself for it. Her words trembled like they were holding too much weight for her to handle. I asked softly, why now? She closed her eyes. Because I lost everything I thought I wanted. And when that happened, I finally saw what I already had. What I threw away. What I destroyed with my own hands. Silence held the hallway like a closed fist. She stepped forward slightly. You didn't deserve the way I treated you. You didn't deserve any of it, I exhaled. No, I didn't, she nodded, tears falling again. I know, and I know I can't fix it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just needed you to know I'm sorry. Truly sorry. I watched the way her hands shook, the way her voice cracked, the way regret clung to her body like a weight she could no longer carry. I did love you, she whispered. I loved you so much, but I didn't know how to love without fear. And I ruined it. I felt something inside me shift, not sharply, quietly. I said, I believe you. Her breath caught. But, I continued, the part of me that loved you, it's gone. I didn't lose it overnight. It faded, slowly. It hurt. And then one day I woke up and it wasn't there anymore. She covered her mouth as another sob broke out of her. I don't hate you, I said, but I don't love you either. Not anymore. She nodded rapidly, tears falling faster. I know I'm too late. I stepped away from the wall. I hope you find peace, Lena. Truly. She sank to her knees, not dramatically, just gently, like her legs gave out. The mop water reflected her face in a shimmering, broken version of itself. I turned and walked back to my office to grab my coat. My footsteps echoed softly behind me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. When I exited the building, the night air was cool. The streetlights reflected on the wet pavement outside. I stood there for a moment, hands in my pockets, listening to the distant sound of traffic. My phone rang. It was Lucas. Still at the office? He asked. Just left, I said. You sound strange. You okay? I exhaled. I saw her, he paused. How was it? She was cleaning. She looked tired. Inside tired, Lucas sighed. Life really turned things around, huh? I didn't feel triumph, I said. You don't have to, he replied. You're not that person. She apologized, I said. Did you believe her? Yes, but belief doesn't rebuild trust. And it doesn't rebuild love. No, he said softly. It doesn't. We stayed quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm proud of you. Not because you moved on, but because you didn't let bitterness shape you. I closed my eyes. Thank you. After we hung up, I walked to a cafe around the corner. Mira was there sipping tea. She looked up when she saw me. You look like you walked through something heavy, she said. I did, I replied, sitting down. She waited, not rushing me. I saw Lena. She works night cleaning shifts now. Mira's expression didn't change into shock or pity, just understanding. How did it feel? Like looking at an old photograph, I said. Something I remember but no longer live inside. Did she apologize? She asked. Yes. And you? I listened. We sat quietly together. The kind of quiet that doesn't demand anything. Mira finally spoke. Not every story needs revenge. Some just need closure. Peace. The word felt unfamiliar. But real. I think I finally have that, I said. I'm glad, she whispered. You deserve it. We left the cafe and walked outside. The night felt lighter. City lights glowed around us. I took a deep breath and kept walking. I wasn't walking away from her. I was walking forward, toward whatever comes next. Toward new mornings. New laughter, and a life that belonged to me again. And that was enough. I stood there in the quiet office hallway, the faint hum of the ceiling lights echoing above me. Lena's sobs had softened to trembling breaths, and I could feel the weight of her guilt pressing into the space between us. She stood a few steps away, the janitor uniform hanging loosely on her shoulders, her hands trembling around the mop handle. Ethan, she whispered again, her voice cracking. I took a slow breath. Lena, look at me. She lifted her eyes, swollen and red, full of a pain I once would have rushed to soothe. Now I only felt something calm, something still. I forgive you, I said quietly. She flinched like the words cut deeper than anger ever could. No, please, don't say it like that. I mean it, I replied. I forgive you. But that means it's over, she whispered. Right? I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to be cruel. I wasn't here to punish her. I wasn't here to reopen wounds. I had lived inside them long enough. Yes, I finally said. It's over. Her breath hitched as tears fell again. I was stupid. I thought I had to choose the better future. I thought you'd never amount to anything. I know, I cut gently. You don't have to explain the past again. We both lived it. She shook her head, gripping her chest as if she was holding herself together. But I didn't know losing you would feel like this. I didn't know you were going to become this version of you. I let out a small, sad exhale. You didn't believe I could. I was wrong, she cried. I nodded. Yes, she closed her eyes as if agreeing with me broke her. Can't we try again? She whispered. Not like before. I'll work. I'll fix things. No. My voice remained soft but steady. We can't go backward. She covered her mouth, trying to muffle her sobbing. I never thought you'd be the one walking away. For a long time, neither did I admitted. But I learned how to live without you. And when I did, I realized I didn't want to go back. She dropped to her knees, the mop clattering to the floor. Ethan, please. I stepped forward and gently helped her stand. Don't do that. Not for me. Not for anyone. I still love you, she whispered. I looked into her eyes. I'm not the person you loved anymore, and the person I loved doesn't exist now either. She sobbed harder, the kind of sound that comes from somewhere deep and wounded. I'm sorry, she choked. I'm so sorry. I know. I let my hand rest briefly on her shoulder. And I'm letting it go. She closed her eyes like she was trying to memorize the feeling of my hand one last time. When I stepped back, she didn't follow. I hope, I said quietly, that you find a life that doesn't hurt you anymore. Then I turned toward the elevator. The hallway felt longer than usual, each step echoing softly. I didn't look back, not because I was cold, but because I needed to walk forward. When I stepped into the elevator, the doors hesitated before closing, as if giving me a final chance to turn back. I didn't. I stood there staring at my reflection in the dull metal surface. My eyes looked different from the boy who once begged for her affection. There was no anger there, just quiet understanding. For a moment I wondered if I should have said more to her, something comforting, something to ease the pain I saw in her face. But then I realized comfort was not mine to give anymore. That part of our story had ended long before tonight. A faint sound echoed in the hallway as the doors began to close. Her voice, small, trembling. Please don't forget I loved you, she whispered. I didn't answer. The elevator carried me downward. I placed my hand briefly over my chest, feeling the slow, steady rhythm of my heartbeat. There was no panic, no frantic ache. Just a quiet ache that made sense. Pain that had a shape and a reason, and was finally allowed to settle instead of consume. When the elevator doors opened, I exhaled. I had come here heavy. I was leaving lighter, but healing, I realized, was not the absence of pain. It was learning how to carry it softly. Mira stood waiting, hands tucked in her coat pockets. Her eyes lifted to mine immediately, searching, gentle. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, though my chest felt tight. Yes, she stepped closer. "You sure?" "I am. And I meant it. She didn't ask what happened." "She didn't need to." "Ready to go?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." We walked out of the building together. The night air was cool, brushing against my skin like a quiet reminder that the world was still moving. "You're thinking about her," Mira said quietly. "Yes." That's allowed. "I spent so long believing the only way to be strong was to make her regret it," I said. "And now?" "I just needed my life back," Mira nodded. "You reclaimed it." She drove us through quiet streets. The city lights blurred past the windows. "Did it hurt to say goodbye?" she asked. "Yes, but holding on would have hurt more." "That's real," she whispered. When we reached my building, she paused. "Do you want company?" I breathed in. "Stay, not because I need someone, but because I want you here." She smiled softly and followed me inside. At my door, I paused. "I thought my future was gone," I said, "but it was just waiting." Mira didn't speak. She didn't need to. I opened the door. I did not win by hurting her. I won by surviving her. Forward now.